We are about to begin the Torah reading of Parasha Toldot. And in the Parasha of Toldot, we start to learn about the story of Isaac and his children. And before I share a few words about Isaac and one interesting section of the Torah that really opened up a big part of him and his personality, I want to ask you, what do we know about Isaac? What do we know about Isaac, our second patriarch? Yeah.
He looked like his father until Abraham was very, very old, so it's hard to distinguish between both of them.
He looked like his father until Abraham got very old. Okay, nice. Someone else. Isaac. What do we know about Isaac? Diana, sure. Very nice. So Diana's dropped a very big and often common way of referring to Isaac, which says he was passive. And the story that we learn so much about his passivity is the story we read on Rosh Hashanah. We often see this as a story about Abraham, his father, but it's the binding of Isaac's story. And when you see how Isaac does not protest this potential, as understood, sacrifice of him, we are given an insight into his personality, that he is someone who will just accept what he is given. Good. Anyone else know about Isaac? Yeah. Fair enough. There's also a counter-narrative that maybe there's something more to Isaac. Maybe he had great faith that would allow him to be in such a place. Fair. Anyone else? Isaac. Okay, back to this side. Neil.
I studied last night.
Okay, very good.
He followed in Abraham's footsteps for much of it. He had to leave for famine. He dug back for wells. He encountered people that didn't like him very much. So he lived a very close life.
There's a lot of similarities to his father's life. Not so, you could look at him as having not something so unique and special about him. Abraham avoids famine, so does he. Abraham is blessed Abraham receives blessing, so is he. Abraham, by the way, is the one who creates a prayer service, so does Isaac. Lot of similarities. Yes. Nothing unique and distinguishing. Sure.
In his personality, reflective, and that's
Nice.
probably the rabbis, they lean into what you talked about the whole binding, and he might have been a little checked out, not checked out, but he was more reflective and introspective, I think. And the other thing is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it says in the Torah, he loved with God, and we don't hear that term very often. And I think that was a lot of it too. Their relationship was the basis for marriage today. I mean, just to also talk about Rivka, when they said, "Do you want this? Is this what you want?" She said yes. So there was a mutual consent, I guess. And I think that's really very progressive of that time.
Okay, a lot there, but I'll just highlight two pieces there. One, I forgot the first one you said, but the second part is that he described as being in love. What was the first point you said, Diana?
Oh, that he was introspective.
Introspective, meditative, right? Yeah, very good. And that was where potentially the idea that he was linked to the afternoon service, the mincha service, came from. Really nice, really nice. Thank you, Diana. Okay. Hopefully what you're hearing is, we're going to touch upon a number of the comments that were made, that Isaac had, I don't want to speak so definitively, there's a way of understanding Isaac, a common understanding of Isaac, that he was generally passive and not unique. We talked about the binding of Isaac when he is introduced in this week's Torah portion. On page 146, Ve'ela Toldot Yitzchak. Okay, we're going to learn about Isaac. What do we know about Isaac? Ben Avram, he was a son of Abraham. Okay, and what's the first thing we want to know about him? Abraham begot Isaac. So the first thing we learn about Isaac's life is that he is the son of his father. Again, Abraham's casting a big shadow here. Later on, we're going to see that just as Abraham went down because of a famine, so does Isaac. And then at the end of the story, we're going to see how his children, because Isaac might potentially be so passive, they trick him. His son Jacob tricks him and steals the birthright of his older brother. And Isaac is left being like, caught off guard, the word's blinded by perhaps his reluctance to have an active personality where he thinks ahead of these things and ensures that those types of lapses don't take place. I now want to introduce to you a different narrative of Isaac. And to share that piece, we have to get a little sultry. So, what do I mean by that? I want everyone to open up their Chamushim, the big red books here, to page 149. Page 149. And we're going to come across a verse that when I was preparing this Devar Torah, I almost spit out my coffee. It's a hot one. It's a hot one. In fact, I'm going to allow you to read that part in English while I translate in Hebrew. So, chapter 26, there was a famine in the land aside from the previous famine that had occurred in the days of Abraham. So there's a famine, and now we're seeing that, this is very similar to the famine that took place in Abraham. Nothing new here, and once again, he's being overshadowed by Abraham. And Isaac went to Avimelech, king of the Philistines in Gerar. The Lord had appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Stay in the land which I point out to you." This is different. God does not interfere in the story of Abraham, and here with Isaac, God says, don't go. Reside in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. I will assign all these lands to you and to your heirs, fulfilling the oath that I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your heirs as numerous as the stars of heaven, and assign to your heirs all these lands, so that all the nations of the earth shall bless them by your heirs. Okay? God is giving a blessing, inasmuch Abraham obeyed me and kept my charge, my commandments, my laws, and my teachings. Okay. A little bit different because Isaac does not end up going all the way to Egypt, and God interferes. Next, Isaac stays in Gerar. When the men of this place asked him about his wife, he said, "She is my sister. The men of the place might kill me on account of Rebekah, for she is beautiful." This is just like his father. When Abraham in Egypt is worried about his wife being at risk, he comes up with this cover story, "She's my sister." He's acting just like his father. Verse 8. I hope you're reading along. I really strongly recommend that you read it in English. I'm not even going to read it for you. When some time had passed, Avimelech, king of the Philistines, looking out of the window, saw Isaac, and the Hebrew is, he was Yitzchak mitzachek et Rivka ishto. Isaac, who was literally named after a gesture of his mother. Okay, so he's introduced, his story is he's the son of his father, and he is named after the action of his mother. Okay, nothing distinct about him. Now we're seeing an interesting use of his name. Mitzachek means to laugh. And now, what is he doing? He is causing his wife to laugh. Now you might want to look at the response here. Abimelech sent for Isaac and said, "So she is your wife. Why then did you not say she is my sister?" So just to fill in the blanks for you, and you can read along in the English, what type of laughing would he be causing that would cause others to look at him and be like, oh, that can't just be your sister. So innuendo here, we're going well beyond just a silly joke. Something far more intimate. And what happens is Avimelech begins to understand that Isaac is married, and then Isaac then begins to receive blessing from Avimelech. This is different from how Abraham acted with Sarah. We don't hear in the Abraham narrative about the relationship between Sarah and Abraham in such details. And it hints at another way of looking at Isaac. And I want to propose two ways you can look at it. One is he is not passive. He is actually a proactive character. So we saw that in the story of perhaps the binding of Isaac. That actually in the binding of Isaac, Isaac is a man of deep faith, and it is his faith that enables the act to take place, so he has some control over it. Another is in this week's Torah portion. Also in last week's Torah portion. When Isaac sees Rivkah, his bride-to-be, he falls in love with her, and what's pretty amazing, and that the word love is described. And I think that's worth noting, because instead of him saying, oh, this is the person that's been given to me, I'm going to, I guess that'll be my way of fulfilling the blessings, you see something come out of him that is unique and special that describes how he is in relationship with his bride-to-be, not something that is given to him. Thirdly, in the beginning of this week's Torah portion, when Isaac sees that his wife can't have a child, is barren, the word to describe him is vaye'ater. It's a prayer that comes from a place of empathy. He feels his wife's pain, and then he intercedes on her behalf, or you might say on their behalf. But either way, you don't see this with Abraham. Abraham never prays to God that his wives who are barren will be pregnant. He receives that blessing, but he doesn't proactively pray and ask. And the word that's used is not just to pray, but the prayer comes from a place of affection and feeling. The other way, related to how we can understand Isaac's gesture with his wife, is that he is someone who is emotional. Now I want to coax what being emotional means. All human beings, as we all know, we all carry emotions. We all are feeling physical beings. However, it's not often the case that we are in touch with our feelings. And there are things that prevent us from being in touch with our feelings. It could be the histories that we carry. It could be that we are just so busy that we don't have a chance to really be in relationships with the feelings that we carry and to understand them. And what Isaac displays is that he does have that capacity. In some ways, the greatest gift that Abraham leaves for his son Isaac is the space and the capacity to be able to discover and be in relationship with his feelings. So he is perhaps able to love because he has the space to engage in love. He is able to advocate for his wife because he has a space to hear and feel what his wife is carrying at that moment. And when they're in Gerar and they're free, he has a space to feel his, to understand his emotions and to act on them. And these are emotions of love that he carries with him. So in many ways, Isaac is the first of our forefathers to be in relationship with his feelings. And that is a gift given to him perhaps by the choices of Abraham, creating a space for him to do so. Now, there's also a little bit of a challenge in this, because unlike Abraham, he does not ask God who he should bless. He feels it. Okay, my son is coming to me. This is what I feel. I'm going to give him the first blessing. And it leads to him making what could be understood as a mistake. Minimally, this is not a choice that he's thinking about seriously. And when you read the end of this Torah portion, you see regret in the blessing he gives when he's confronted by Esav. So it's not always the perfect solution to be in touch with our feelings. There are risks when we live a life that is emotional, but there's also blessings as well. And I think about Isaac in many ways, and I think about his ability to be in touch with his emotions, especially as a gift from his father, as something that can relate to all of us. And I would propose 3 pieces here. To be in relationship with our feelings requires oftentimes the gift of time and not societal pressures. And in some ways, we live in a generation where, unlike our ancestors, we have a homeland, the state of Israel. In a month, I am going to get on a plane and fly there. And the greatest challenge is making sure that the students I'll be traveling with don't lose their passports. That's a far cry of the worries that our ancestors had to deal with when they faced oppression or were on their way to the land of Israel. 2, it's a gift that I don't take for granted. That yes, I do work hard, but compared to the challenges of my ancestors, who literally had to change my last name so that they could gain employment growing up in the 1920s, the challenges that I face are much less. And 3, in some ways, after over 40 years of the history of our congregation, we're beginning to feel the gift of the choices of those who came before us and beginning to feel an opportunity to breathe without the risk that one choice will lead to the closing of our doors. All of those things lead to the gift of having time and space and the gift of being in touch with how we feel and allowing our feelings to guide us and be an active part of our lives. And with that does come risk that we could misuse the choices that we make, but also comes a feeling of gratitude. And as we enter the holiday of Thanksgiving, I think the story of Isaac reminds me of the gift of gratitude. Just as in the verse describing the story in Gerar with his wife, he's able to find a nice sense of intimate joy. So too may each and every one of us, as we think about this unique space that we have in our history, feel gratitude for what has come before us, and live with humility, and also make sure that our gratitude enables us to feel a sense of playful joy. Shabbat Shalom.